Have you ever found yourself standing in the middle of a room, completely forgetting why you walked in there in the first place? Or perhaps you've been in the middle of telling a story to a loved one, a story you've told a dozen times, only to have a key name or detail evaporate from your mind, leaving you grasping at a frustrating void. This feeling, this thick, soupy slowness of thought that clouds your memory and dulls your focus, is often called brain fog. For so many of us, especially as the years begin to add up, we chalk it up to a simple, unavoidable truth. I'm just getting older. But what if that isn't the whole story? What if that convenient explanation is masking culprits that you have the power to change? Consider the story of Arthur, a retired history professor of 76. He had always prided himself on his sharp memory and quick wit. His home was a library of stories, and he could recall dates, names, and events with astonishing clarity. Yet, over the past year, a persistent haze had settled over his mind. He would lose his train of thought mid-sentence, struggle to find common words, and the vibrant details of his beloved historical accounts began to feel blurry and distant. His children noticed he was more withdrawn, his usual intellectual spark dimmed. Arthur felt a growing sense of dread, a fear that this was the beginning of an inevitable decline, a path he had watched his own father walk. He blamed his age, seeing the fog as a non-negotiable part of his late 70s, a sign that the best of his mental years were behind him. He felt resigned, powerless against the march of time. But Arthur's story doesn't have to be your story. What he, and so many others, attribute to the number of candles on a birthday cake is often the result of very specific, very real, and, most importantly, very fixable physiological issues. The narrative that brain fog is an immutable part of aging is not just disheartening, it's profoundly misleading. We're here at Elderly Guidance to pull back the curtain on this common misconception. The truth, supported by a growing body of medical research and the advice of leading neurologists and geriatric specialists, is that your lifestyle and daily habits have a far greater impact on your mental clarity than your age alone. In this article, we are going to explore 5 of the most common yet often overlooked reasons for brain fog that you can actually do something about. We will move beyond the simple diagnosis and delve deep into the science of why these issues cloud your mind and provide you with powerful, practical, and scientifically backed strategies to clear the haze. By the time you finish reading, you will not only understand the true roots of your cognitive struggles, but also feel empowered with a clear roadmap to reclaim your mental sharpness, focus, and vitality. Stay with me because the final piece of advice we will discuss is one that is so foundational yet so frequently ignored, that it could be the single most transformative secret to a clear mind for the rest of your life. As a team dedicated to translating complex health information into empowering guidance, we've spent years combing through clinical studies and speaking with experts about the realities of aging well. The consensus is clear and incredibly hopeful. You have more control than you've been led to believe. The story of Arthur is a familiar one, but so is the story of those who learn to identify the true culprits and take action. The change can be life-altering. If you find the information we're about to share valuable, if it resonates with a feeling you've had yourself, please let me know by commenting the number 1 below. If you feel this isn't hitting the mark, please comment with the number 0. Your feedback is what allows us to create better, more helpful content for this wonderful community. Now let's begin the journey to a clearer mind by unmasking the first, and perhaps most surprising reason for that frustrating brain fog. The very first reason your mind might feel sluggish and unfocused, a reason so fundamental that it's almost deceptive in its simplicity, has nothing to do with complex neurological diseases, but everything to do with what's in your glass: chronic, low-grade dehydration. Before you dismiss this as too basic, consider this staggering fact. Your brain is composed of approximately 75% water. Every single electrical impulse, every connection between neurons, every process of memory formation and retrieval happens in this aqueous environment. When this environment is even slightly depleted, the entire system is compromised. Think of your brain like a vibrant, lush garden. Without sufficient water, the leaves begin to wilt, the colors fade, and the entire ecosystem slows down. This is precisely what happens to your cognitive function when you're not adequately hydrated. Research from esteemed institutions has shown that even a mild dehydration level, a loss of just 1 to 2% of your body weight in water, can significantly impair functions that require attention, memory, and executive function. Your brain literally has to work harder to perform the same tasks. MRI studies have even revealed that chronic dehydration can cause the brain to temporarily shrink in volume, pulling away from the skull. This physical change corresponds directly to that feeling of mental fog, headaches, and slowed thinking. For older adults, this is a particularly insidious problem. The body's thirst mechanism, the internal alarm that tells you it's time to drink, becomes less sensitive with age. You can be significantly dehydrated without ever feeling truly thirsty, making it incredibly easy to fall into a state of chronic fluid deficit. Let's bring this to life with the story of Helen, an 80-year-old grandmother who loved doing crossword puzzles. For decades, it was her morning ritual, a way to keep her mind sharp and start the day with a sense of accomplishment. But lately, she found herself staring at the clues for long stretches, the answers just out of reach. Words she knew like the back of her hand seemed to have vanished. She was becoming irritable and fatigued by mid-afternoon, often needing a long nap. Her daughter, a nurse, came to visit for a week and noticed something simple. Helen barely drank anything all day. She'd have a small cup of coffee in the morning and maybe a small glass of juice with lunch. When her daughter gently questioned her, Helen's response was common. "I just don't feel thirsty, dear." Her daughter knew that thirst was no longer a reliable indicator for her mother. She started a new routine for her. She bought Helen a beautiful, lightweight water bottle with markings for every 2 hours. She filled it with water infused with slices of lemon and cucumber to make it more appealing. She set a gentle alarm on Helen's clock for every hour as a simple reminder to take a few sips. The change wasn't instantaneous, but within 2 weeks it was remarkable. Helen reported feeling more energetic. The afternoon slump started to disappear. One morning, her daughter found her at the kitchen table, pen flying across the newspaper. Helen looked up with a brilliant smile and said, "It's the strangest thing. The words are just coming to me again." She hadn't needed a powerful new drug or a complex therapy. She had just needed to properly water her brain. The actionable advice here is to transform your hydration from a passive activity into a proactive, intentional habit. Do not wait for thirst to be your guide. Your goal should be consistent fluid intake throughout the entire day. Start by getting a dedicated water bottle, one that you enjoy using. A clear bottle with time markers can be a fantastic visual motivator. Aim to sip, not chug. Your body, especially your kidneys, can process fluid more effectively when it's delivered steadily over time rather than in one or two large volumes. If you find plain water unappealing, infuse it. Add slices of orange, mint leaves, berries, or cucumber. Herbal teas, consumed warm or iced, are also excellent hydrating fluids. Furthermore, remember that you can eat your water. Many fruits and vegetables have incredibly high water content. Cucumbers, celery, watermelon, strawberries, and cantaloupe are all more than 90% water and can contribute significantly to your daily fluid needs. Make it a rule. Every time you have a meal or a snack, have a glass of water with it. Place a glass of water by your bedside to have as soon as you wake up, and another to have before you go to sleep. It may seem like a small change, but consistently providing your brain with the hydration it desperately needs can be one of the fastest and most powerful ways to lift the fog, boost your energy, and restore your mental clarity. It is the very foundation upon which all other cognitive function is built. Moving on from the fluid that powers your brain, let's look at the fuel it consumes. The second powerful and entirely fixable reason for pervasive brain fog is rooted in your nutrition, specifically hidden nutritional deficiencies and the overconsumption of inflammatory foods. It's a shocking truth that you can be well-fed but profoundly undernourished. Our modern diet, often filled with convenient, processed, and sugar-laden foods, can starve the brain of the specific micronutrients it needs to function optimally. Think of your brain as a high-performance engine. You wouldn't put low-grade, dirty fuel in a Ferrari and expect it to run smoothly. Yet, we often do this to the most complex and energy-demanding organ in our bodies. The link between what you eat and how you think is not philosophical. It is hard science. Key vitamins, especially B vitamins like B12, B6, and folate, are absolutely critical for nerve function and the creation of neurotransmitters, the chemical messengers that allow your brain cells to communicate. A deficiency in vitamin B12, for example, is notoriously linked to symptoms that perfectly mimic age-related cognitive decline. memory loss, confusion, and that classic foggy feeling. This deficiency is more common in older adults because the ability to absorb B12 from food can decrease with age. Similarly, minerals like magnesium, which is involved in over 300 biochemical reactions in the body, play a vital role in brain plasticity and preventing the overexcitation of nerve cells, which can lead to that feeling of being mentally scattered and overwhelmed. At the same time, we are potentially missing these key nutrients. Many of us are consuming foods that actively promote inflammation throughout the body, including the brain. Chronic inflammation is now understood by the medical community to be a root cause of many age-related diseases, and it has a devastating effect on cognitive clarity. Highly processed foods, refined sugars, and unhealthy trans fats trigger an inflammatory response that can damage brain cells and disrupt the delicate signaling pathways required for clear thought. Imagine the case of David, a 72-year-old retired accountant who prided himself on his sharp mind for numbers. His days, however, had become a frustrating cycle. He'd sit down to balance his checkbook, a task he once did with ease, and find himself unable to concentrate. The numbers seemed to swim on the page. His diet was one of convenience. Breakfast was often a sugary cereal or a pastry. Lunch was a prepackaged sandwich with white bread, and dinner frequently involved a frozen meal or takeout. He wasn't a junk food addict in the classic sense, but his diet was almost entirely composed of processed items. He felt tired all the time and his joints ached, which he also blamed on age. A consultation with a nutritionist, prompted by his concerned daughter, revealed he was severely deficient in both vitamin B12 and magnesium, and his diet was highly inflammatory. The nutritionist didn't put him on a restrictive, joyless diet. Instead, she worked with him to make simple, powerful swaps. The sugary cereal was replaced with oatmeal topped with blueberries and walnuts. The white bread sandwich became a whole grain wrap filled with grilled chicken and leafy green. He learned to roast a tray of colorful vegetables like broccoli, bell peppers, and sweet potatoes at the beginning of the week to easily add to his meals. He started incorporating sources of B12 like eggs and fortified milk, and magnesium-rich foods like spinach, almonds, and avocados. It was a gradual change, but after a month, David felt like a different person. The fog in his head began to lift. He could focus on his finances again, but more than that, he felt a renewed sense of engagement with the world. The constant, low-grade fatigue and achiness began to recede. He was fueling his brain, not just filling his stomach. The actionable advice here is to become a more conscious consumer, focusing on adding brain-boosting foods rather than just subtracting bad ones. Embrace the concept of eating a rainbow of colors every day. The vibrant colors in fruits and vegetables are from phytonutrients and antioxidants that directly combat inflammation and protect your brain cells from damage. Prioritize leafy greens like spinach and kale, which are powerhouses of brain protective nutrients. Adopt healthy fats, which are essential for brain structure. This means incorporating sources like avocados, nuts, especially walnuts, seeds like flax and chia, and olive oil. Fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, particularly DHA, which is a primary structural component of the brain and is crucial for memory and cognitive performance. At the same time, make a concerted effort to reduce your intake of processed foods and sugar. Read labels. Sugar hides in countless products, from bread and sauces to yogurt. A simple rule is to shop the perimeter of the grocery store, where the fresh, whole foods are typically located, and venture into the aisles of packaged goods with caution and scrutiny. You don't need to be perfect overnight. Start with one meal. Upgrade your breakfast from a processed pastry to a bowl of protein-rich Greek yogurt with berries. Small, consistent changes to your diet can provide your brain with the high-quality fuel it needs to cut through the fog and operate at its peak potential, proving that mental clarity is often found at the end of your fork. If you are still with me on this journey and these lessons are resonating with you, please take a moment to comment with the number 3 below. It lets me know that this time we're spending together is valuable and encourages me to continue creating content that empowers and supports you. Thank you for your time and your engagement. Now, let's move from what you put into your body to what your body does while you rest. The third profound yet fixable reason for brain fog is a lack of high-quality restorative sleep. We often think of sleep as a passive state of simply turning off, but in reality, it is an incredibly active and vital period for your brain's health and maintenance. While you are in the deepest stages of sleep, your brain is running a highly sophisticated cleaning cycle. This process, known as the glymphatic system, is one of the most important neuroscientific discoveries of the past decade. Think of it as your brain's dedicated sanitation crew. During the day, as your brain works hard, it produces metabolic waste products, including toxic proteins like beta amyloid, which is famously associated with Alzheimer's disease. During deep sleep, your brain cells actually shrink slightly, which allows cerebrospinal fluid to pump through the brain at a much higher rate, flushing out these toxins and washing them away. If you don't get enough deep sleep, this cleaning process is incomplete. The toxins remain, accumulating night after night, leading directly to that feeling of brain fog, impaired memory, and slowed thinking. It's the neurological equivalent of trying to work in an office where the trash has never been taken out. The problem is that as we get older, our sleep patterns naturally change. We may find it harder to fall asleep, and we tend to spend less time in the deep, restorative stages of sleep, where this crucial glymphatic cleanup occurs. Furthermore, undiagnosed sleep disorders, most notably sleep apnea, become far more common with age. Sleep apnea is a condition where breathing repeatedly stops and starts during sleep, which not only starves the brain of oxygen, but also violently disrupts the sleep cycle, preventing you from ever reaching those deep, cleansing stages. A person can wake up dozens or even hundreds of times an hour without any conscious memory of it, yet they will feel the profound effects the next day in the form of extreme fatigue and debilitating brain fog. Consider the story of Margaret, a 70-year-old woman who was known for her vibrant personality and love of socializing. Over time, her friends noticed a change. She seemed perpetually exhausted. Her conversations were less sharp, and she started declining invitations to her beloved book club and card games, saying she was just too tired. Her husband was also concerned. He mentioned that her snoring had become incredibly loud, and at times he would hear her gasp for air in her sleep. Margaret dismissed it all. "I'm sleeping a full 8 hours," she would insist. "I just don't feel rested. It must be my age." She was convinced she was getting enough sleep because she was in bed for a long time, but the quality of that sleep was abysmal. She wasn't resting. She was fighting for air all night. The chronic oxygen deprivation and lack of deep sleep were suffocating her brain's ability to function. After much persuasion from her family, she finally agreed to a sleep study. The diagnosis was severe obstructive sleep apnea. She was fitted with a CPAP, continuous positive airway pressure machine, a device that gently keeps the airway open during sleep. The first few nights were an adjustment, but on the fourth morning, she woke up and felt a sensation she hadn't experienced in years. She felt truly awake. The thick fog that had shrouded her mind for so long began to dissipate. Within a month, she was back at her book club, her wit as sharp as ever, and her energy levels were restored. The culprit wasn't her age, it was the quality of her breath in the night. The actionable advice to combat this cause of brain fog is to elevate the importance of your sleep hygiene to the same level as your diet and exercise. First, if you suspect you might have a sleep disorder like sleep apnea, key signs include loud snoring, gasping in your sleep, morning headaches, and excessive daytime sleepiness despite a full night in bed. It is absolutely crucial to speak with a healthcare provider. A sleep study can provide a definitive diagnosis, and treatment can be life-changing. Beyond that, you can cultivate powerful sleep hygiene habits. Create a wind-down routine that signals to your brain that it's time to prepare for sleep. This should begin at least an hour before bedtime. Turn off bright overhead lights and use soft, warm lighting. Power down all electronic screens, televisions, computers, smartphones, as the blue light they emit directly suppresses the production of melatonin, your body's key sleep hormone. Instead, read a physical book, listen to calming music, take a warm bath with Epsom salts, or practice gentle stretching. Make your bedroom a sanctuary for sleep. It should be cool, dark, and quiet. Invest in blackout curtains and consider a white noise machine or earplugs to block out disruptive sounds. Crucially, avoid large meals, caffeine, and alcohol in the hours leading up to bedtime. While alcohol might make you feel drowsy initially, it severely disrupts sleep architecture later in the night, preventing deep sleep. Strive for consistency. Going to bed and waking up at roughly the same time every day, even on weekends, helps to regulate your body's internal clock or circadian rhythm, making it easier to fall asleep and wake up feeling refreshed. Prioritizing your sleep is not a luxury. It is a non-negotiable act of brain maintenance that allows you to clear out the mental garbage and wake up with a mind that is clear, sharp, and ready for the day. Now let's pivot from the state of rest to the state of motion. The fourth major and entirely fixable reason for that cognitive haze is a sedentary lifestyle. Our bodies, and by extension our brains, were designed to move. In today's world of modern conveniences, it's incredibly easy to slip into a life of prolonged sitting, but this inactivity comes at a steep cost to our mental clarity. The connection is direct and operates through several powerful mechanisms. First and foremost is blood flow. Physical activity, even something as gentle as a walk, increases your heart rate and pumps more oxygen-rich blood to your brain. This increased circulation delivers the vital nutrients we've discussed and helps to clear out those metabolic byproducts more efficiently. Think of it like opening a window in a stuffy room. Movement brings a fresh breeze of oxygen and energy to your brain cells. Secondly, and perhaps most excitingly from a scientific perspective, exercise triggers the release of a miracle grow for your brain, called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. BDNF is a protein that plays a critical role in the survival of existing neurons and encourages the growth of new ones, a process called neurogenesis. It also strengthens the connections, or synapses, between neurons. Higher levels of BDNF are linked to better memory, improved learning, and sharper cognitive function. A sedentary lifestyle, on the other hand, leads to lower levels of BDNF, making the brain more vulnerable to decline. In essence, sitting for long periods is actively starving your brain of this critical growth factor. Let's look at the story of George, a 78-year-old former mail carrier. All his working life he had been active, walking miles every day. In retirement, however, his world had shrunk. He spent most of his days in his comfortable recliner, watching television or reading. He loved his family, but when his grandchildren came to visit, he found he couldn't keep up. He felt mentally slow, struggling to follow their fast-paced conversations and games. He would often just sit and watch, a passive observer rather than an active participant. A profound sadness settling over him, he felt old and useless. His doctor, during a routine checkup, didn't just look at his blood pressure. She asked him about his day. When she heard about the hours spent in the recliner, she made a simple prescription. "George, I want you to walk to the end of your driveway and back, twice a day." It seemed ridiculously small, but George agreed to try. At first it felt like a chore, but after a week he started walking to the end of the block. He started noticing the gardens in his neighborhood, saying hello to neighbors. The walks grew longer. He started joining his wife on her morning errand. The physical changes were noticeable. He had more energy and less stiffness. But the mental changes were what truly astonished him. He started feeling sharper. The fog began to lift. He found himself joking with his grandchildren again, engaging in their stories, his mind feeling more agile and present. The movement had not just strengthened his legs, it had reawakened his brain, flooding it with the oxygen and BDNF it had been craving. The actionable advice here is to find joyful ways to weave movement into the fabric of your day, recognizing that you don't need to become a marathon runner to reap the cognitive benefits. The key is to break up long periods of sitting. Set a timer for every 30-60 minutes as a reminder to simply get up and move. You can walk around the house, do some simple stretches, or even just march in place during a commercial break. Start small, just like George. A 5 or 10-minute walk is a fantastic starting point. Consistency is far more important than intensity. Find activities you genuinely enjoy. This could be gardening, dancing to your favorite music in the living room, joining a water aerobics class, or practicing Tai Chi, which is exceptional for both balance and cognitive function. If mobility is an issue, chair exercises can be incredibly effective. There are countless free videos online that guide you through seated workouts that can raise your heart rate and work your muscles. The goal is to make movement a regular, non-negotiable part of your life. See it not as a chore, but as a direct investment in your mental clarity. Every step you take, every stretch you make is actively fighting brain fog, building a more resilient brain, and preserving the precious sharpness that allows you to engage fully with the life you love. If you're still reading and finding these insights helpful, I would be so grateful if you would let me know by commenting with the number 5 below. Knowing that we are on this path together is incredibly motivating. Thank you so much for your continued time and focus. Finally, we arrive at the fifth reason, a pervasive and powerful force in modern life that can profoundly cloud the mind: chronic stress and information overload. This isn't the acute, short-term stress that can sometimes sharpen our focus for a deadline. This is the low-grade, unrelenting stress that comes from financial worries, health concerns, family issues, or even the constant 24/7 barrage of news and digital notifications. When your body is in a state of chronic stress, it continuously pumps out the hormone cortisol. In the short term, cortisol is helpful, but when its levels are persistently high, it becomes toxic to the brain, particularly to the hippocampus, the area of your brain that is absolutely central to learning and memory. High cortisol levels can actually shrink the hippocampus, impairing your ability to form new memories and retrieve old ones. It's the biological mechanism behind that feeling of being so stressed you can't think straight. It also disrupts the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for executive functions like concentration, decision-making, and emotional regulation. This is why, when you are chronically stressed, you not only feel foggy and forgetful, but also scattered, overwhelmed, and irritable. This is compounded by the information overload of our digital age. The constant pings from our phones, the endless scroll of social media, and the 24-hour news cycle keep our brains in a state of high alert, never allowing for the mental downtime required to consolidate information and think deeply. We are training our brains to be constantly distracted, and the price we pay is a loss of focus and clarity. Think of Eleanor, a 74-year-old who, after her husband passed away, found herself managing the household finances for the first time. The weight of the responsibility was immense, and she felt a constant hum of anxiety. To distract herself, she spent hours on her tablet, scrolling through news articles and social media feeds. Falling down rabbit holes of often negative and alarming information, she began to feel a deep sense of mental exhaustion. She couldn't remember if she had paid certain bills, she would miss appointments she had scheduled, and her ability to make clear decisions felt completely eroded. She felt overwhelmed by a constant mental static that made it impossible to focus. She believed her memory was failing her, that she was becoming incompetent. A wise friend intervened, not by trying to solve her financial problems, but by addressing her stress. She introduced Eleanor to a gentle, guided meditation app. At first, Eleanor was skeptical, but she agreed to try for just 5 minutes a day. The friend also suggested a digital sunset, a rule where all screens were turned off at 8 p.m. Instead of scrolling, Eleanor started listening to classical music and reading novels from her shelf. The changes were profound. The 5 minutes of daily meditation began to quiet the constant anxiety. By turning off the fire hose of digital information at night, she gave her brain a chance to rest and reset. Slowly, the mental static subsided. The fog of indecision began to clear. She found she could sit down with her financial papers with a calmer, more focused mind. The problem wasn't a failing brain. It was a brain drowning in cortisol and overstimulation. The actionable advice to combat this final cause is to actively manage your stress and curate your information diet. You must become the guardian of your own mental peace. Embrace a daily mindfulness or meditation practice. This doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as sitting quietly for 5 minutes and focusing on the sensation of your breath. Apps like Calm or Headspace can provide gentle guidance. This practice has been scientifically shown to reduce cortisol levels and actually increase the density of gray matter in the hippocampus, directly counteracting the damage of stress. Secondly, take control of your technology. Turn off all non-essential notifications on your phone. You decide when to look at your device. Don't let it decide for you. Schedule specific times to check email and social media, rather than letting them interrupt you throughout the day. Implement a digital sunset, creating a screen-free buffer zone before bed to allow your mind to unwind. Spend more time in nature. Even a short walk in a park has been shown to lower stress and improve cognitive function. Finally, prioritize connection and play. Make time for hobbies that absorb you. Spend time with loved ones who uplift you. And don't underestimate the power of laughter. Laughter is a potent stress reliever. Actively managing your stress is not a passive wish. It is an active skill. By reducing the cortisol load and giving your brain the quiet space it needs, you can effectively silence the static, lift the fog, and restore the calm, clear thinking that you deserve. So, as we've journeyed through these 5 powerful and fixable causes of brain fog, what is the one insight that has resonated with you the most? Is it the surprising simplicity of hydration, the power of nutrition, the critical importance of deep sleep, the revitalizing effect of movement, or the profound need to manage our modern stress? What is one small, actionable step you feel inspired to take in your own life, starting today? Will you buy a new water bottle? Add a handful of spinach to your next meal? Turn off your phone an hour earlier? Take a short walk after lunch? Or download a meditation app? Please, take a moment to share your answer in the comments below. Your story and your commitment are an inspiration to everyone in this community who is on the same journey. If this article has provided you with value and hope, I encourage you to share it with your friends, your family, or anyone you know who might be needlessly blaming age for a problem they have the power to fix. Thank you for your precious time and for remember to live your life with intention, empowered by the knowledge that you can build a clearer, sharper, and more vibrant mind at any age.